It's from Moishes.
Moishes. The real deal, huh?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we're live, so we're recording. So, all right, so the main thing is, you know, I've been tutoring for a while now, so I just thought it'd be a nice Halloween gift to demystify this process for you, you know?
No, I really appreciate it too. Thank you.
Yeah, and for me, you know, this stuff is like, you know, second nature. So I'll just try to give you some good pointers that I think that if you get into the habit of doing, it'll just make it so every time you do this, it'll be much more pleasurable, you know?
Okay.
So cool. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and then I'll show you my process. So I'll show you my process and then obviously just interject when you have questions and all that. So,
okay.
Cameraman, what's this? Okay, screen share. All right, so a little psychedelic here. So I'm going to go to, now you just see two blue boxes, right?
Yeah.
Okay, go. Okay, so I'm in Photoshop and you can hear me just fine, right?
Yep.
Okay. And let me just check this though to see. So if I go back here, you see that. Okay. Yeah, I just want you to see Photoshop. So, okay, now it's just the two boxes, right? Not the infinite mirrored image, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Just your desktop with the two boxes.
Right. Okay. Just anytime I go back to Google Plus, it does that. So.
Okay.
Okay. Let me hide that. Okay. 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 So I created these two documents, and should I even go over? I should probably go over that too. Just creating a document, just so you get the gist of that.
Sure.
Okay. Okay. So in general, so here we are in Photoshop. You just go up to File, and at the top one is New, and I would suggest that you get pretty savvy with the keyboard shortcuts. So
yeah, I'm all about keys.
Excellent. Yeah. So it's simple. You know, they're always on the right side, and so you see Command N for New,
mm-hmm.
and then up comes this panel. And so right from the get-go, if you look under document type, there's like US paper, international paper, and these kind of presets.
Right.
And then there is, you know, say, you know, US paper is 8.5 by 11, 300. Background is white. And then the good thing about it is if you're doing something like the poster that you said, the 16 by 20.
Right.
After you set in those, you know, width and height dimensions, on the right side, you can click Save Preset. And then you have like a new document preset that you can always just quickly grab from the document type area.
Okay, so now that's a template.
That's right. So it saves a preset of the well, it's not really a template because it's just saving a preset of the original document size.
Okay.
So it doesn't have like the text in the background.
Right.
But as an example, if I go here, I have my 16 by 20 poster, and I could title it, you know, whatever. And then it's 16 by 20. So do be aware that if it's you probably know this already, but do be aware that if it's for print, it should always be 300 pixels per inch,
mm-hmm.
as opposed to 72, which is what you use for the web.
Okay.
And color profile, I have it at sRGB as if it's for the web, but if you know that a printer can handle Adobe RGB 1998, that is your best option. Now, if you're getting into Lightroom, Lightroom defaults to Pro Photo RGB, but do be aware that Pro Photo RGB, even though it's great for Lightroom and Adobe Camera Raw, it is too large of a color profile that any output house would always have to convert it back to Adobe RGB 1998.
Okay, let me, that is actually something that I would like to write down.
Right, okay.
So
what do you remember this is being recorded? So.
right, but it's just writing it down will
of course. All right.
Kind of beat it into my head. So that's good. What it that's color profile.
So yeah, so if I go here, you can see this change, right? You see like a contextual menu.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, so if it's set to Pro Photo, just to let you know, Pro Photo is what Lightroom and Adobe Camera Raw utilizes. That's the color space you'll be in. And that's great while you're working in, you know, Lightroom or Adobe Camera Raw. But the truth is that it's a very expansive, like million color type of color profile. And so if you were to take save something with that color profile and you took it to an output house for a poster, they would say, hey man, this is pro photo. We're gonna have to convert it because, you know, it's out of our gamut, out of what our printers can handle.
Uh-huh.
So it's fine to work on it while you're in those programs, Adobe Camera Raw and Lightroom, but you're always gonna need to either convert to Adobe RGB 1998, depending if they say they can handle that, or worst case scenario is sRGB. And sRGB is what you use for the web, but a lot of output houses these days get lazy and like to convert down to sRGB because they think it's easy to manage and uses less inks or something. So do be aware that if they can use Adobe RGB 1998, you'll get more vibrant colors. sRGB will kind of mute it a little bit.
Okay, so sRGB
It's for the web.
For web.
And then Adobe RGB 1998 for printing if they take it. So, you know, if you're taking this to an output house on a flash drive, just double check what color profile they recommend.
Okay.
And just be aware that if they say sRGB, then you're like, these cheap fuckers, you know, it's like they're like trying to save money on the print. Because I've been told that like when they say sRGB, it means that they're doing kind of like a cheaper type of printing. Whereas if they can handle Adobe RGB 1998, then you'll get a little bit more vibrant colors and more color in your print. You're saying?
Yeah, now bringing to them is going to be a PSD file?
No. So the PSD, PSD will be, think of it as this. PSD is your layered file.
Mm-hmm.
Another flattened duplicate will be a TIFF that you send for printing. And then, of course, anything that you then reduce down to 72 pixels per inch for the web, you'll save that as a JPEG.
Oh, okay. So
and we can do that today too. So
yeah. Oh, okay. No, well, this is good because I wasn't really aware of that for my Lightroom stuff. I haven't had anything printed yet.
Right.
But when I do my edits and then I save them to my whatever the pick folder kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I've been saving them as JPEGs. Should I have been saving them as TIFFs?
Well, what happens is nowadays a lot of people save high-res JPEGs for printing, which is fine. But the truth is that if you save as TIFF, you get more information. So you will have a slightly better quality file. So I would just get in that habit. If it's for print, it's TIFF, flattened TIFF. PSD is always your layered file, and then JPEG is mostly for the web. TIFF is just slightly better. It's better quality than the JPEG because JPEG always has a little bit of compression to it. So.
Okay, so save Lightroom files as TIFFs for printing.
That's correct.
Okay, cool.
And then JPEGs for the web, of course. So, so here's 16 by 20 type of thing. So if we were to say okay, because I chose white as my background, then it would just be this. There's nothing there, So I gave you these two as a way to already have the text semi-formatted.
Okay.
So what you can do is you can start off by opening any of these, and then here I am in the layers panel. You can see the layers panel behind.
Yeah.
Yep. So if I'm in this 16 by 20 poster that has the blue background, if I click on this layer, and then I click on the second layer holding Shift, and then hold Shift and drag into that new poster one, it'll place it, supposed to be centered. I don't know why it's slightly left. It's kind of weird. But, I got little tricks up my sleeve, so I'll be kind of showing you like ways that I would do it, and so you can kind of get more comfortable with that. So when I bring something over like this and it's not centered, if you do you're on a Mac, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so if I do a Command A, you'll see the bounding box like marching ants.
Right.
And then because I'm in the Move tool, if I look up at the options bar at the top, there's like these alignment icons. So you see the one that has two boxes kind of aligned middle. If you click on that, then automatically it aligns it perfectly centered.
Okay.
Pretty cool.
Should I do this myself now?
If you want, just for sake of practice. So here's like if it was left aligned, here it's, center aligned.
Okay, so here I am in Adobe, and I can go like Command O and open those files, right?
Yeah. And then you can just use them as, you know, a basic template, I guess. You know.
Okay. So in the archive, should I choose both of them or just the 16 by 20?
You can just do 16 by 20 because I realized that even though I gave you both, best way to work is you work on the largest image, like the poster, and then you do a duplicate where you resize it to say 8.5 by 11, and then you realize that, oh, it doesn't, you know, proportionally match, and so you have to add like canvas size. So that's kind of part of the lesson today is I figured that just focus on the 16 by 20 poster and let me show you how you would duplicate and resize for other sizes.
Okay, I created because I don't have Typekit, I guess.
Oh, it's missing the.
Hold on a second. Typekit is on. Some fonts are missing. You can sync.
So you don't have Myriad Web Pro or whatever?
Myriad Web Pro.
Yeah, that's what it is.
That, and now do that. And now resolve. Okay, we're good now.
All right, cool.
But okay, so now this is, I have a blue background.
Yeah, that's just to offset the type, you know, that's just.
Okay, and mine's centered, but that was the same thing as yours with the original. Okay. All right. So okay. What am I doing now? What are you doing now?
So we created the new one. So you see the white here. So just be aware that after you bring the type over, and also show you how to just do type from scratch, you know, so you get that. But do be aware that you have these like marching ants around it, right? So it's still selected. So you just have to go up to the select menu and choose deselect, second one down, Command D. And that just makes it so you can now then grab the type and do things with it without that interfering with your movement. Because anytime you use the select tools, it will constrain things to that, as if that's what they think you want to do. Makes sense, right?
Yeah, hold on a second. All right, hold on a second now. All right, so I am grabbing both urban landscape and just, oh, no. What's going on here? Hold on. Oh, you can only have one. How did you drag it onto the white background?
That's fine.
I'm getting either or.
Okay. Let's go here. Go back to there. And then go here. Okay. So start that again just to go through. All right. So just to let you know too, if you do Command Z, you go back one, right? But if you hold Command Option Z, you can go back as many times as you keep clicking. So I usually hold Command and Option and just keep clicking the Z until I go back multiple steps.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So here we are back in the template on the right, right?
Right, now you have these three things open, but I don't see.
Let me close this one so it's easier on you.
So I've got your blue PSD file, and then if I hit Command tilde, I've got my white thing, which I knew.
Oh, okay. So probably what happens is if you go up to Photoshop, you go to Preferences, you go to Interface, Interface or Workspace. Okay, yeah. Under Workspace, you probably have checked Open Documents as tabs. Is that correct? The third one down in Preferences.
I'm not. We're not looking at the same preferences.
Okay.
My third one down says Tools. Interface.
Third one down should be Workspace.
That's my second. Oh, well, first is General, then Interface, then Workspace. Okay.
Yeah, third one down. Yeah. So workspace, if you look on the right, there's a area for open documents as tabs. You see that? Is that checked?
That is checked, yes.
Okay. So it's a personal preference, but what that means is if it says open documents as tabs, then it's tab docked image to image. And so you only see one image at a time as you click on that tab, similar to the way you would browse on like Safari or Google Chrome or whatever browser you use.
Right.
I myself don't like that. So I turn off open documents as tabs so that anytime I work on something, it's free floating.
Okay.
So if you do want to work that way, just be aware that if you do open documents as tabs, you're going to have to click on each tab to see like what you're working on, or you click on the tab and then you can pull it out and then it'll be free floating.
Okay. So let me do it. There we go. Okay, cool.
And then another thing is also is when you go up to window. So in general, window is great for whenever you need to find a panel, right? It's also at the bottom, you can see it shows you what's open. So that's a quick way to jump from one image to the next. But even better, if you have things that are tab docked and you're like, fuck it, I really want these to be free floating, you go up to window and you say arrange at the top, and then you go down to a thing that says float all in windows. And that what that'll do is that'll dissect those tabs and then float them as floating documents. Pretty cool.
That's in.
So it's window, arrange, float all in windows.
Float all in windows.
Right. So say you open up 6 things at once and they're all tab docked and you're like, this sucks. I can only see one at a time. Then you go up to window, arrange, float all in windows, and then boom, they'll all appear as these kind of detached individual documents, or files, whatever.
Got it.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as I said, Windows also the place to remember has all your panels. So if your layers are missing one day when you open up Photoshop and you're like, what's going on here? You just go to Window, Layers, and boom, it comes back.
Okay.
And you also know that if you're working on something and you don't want to see something, you just double click the name and it hides the panel, or collapses it, I guess I should say. Cool?
Double click the name on the right there.
Well, any panel that you have open, so
Uh-huh.
like say I have properties open and I'm like, I don't need this hogging space. I just double click the name and it collapses.
Oh, okay, got it.
So like if I go over to styles, so here's like styles, which I don't even know why it's open. All pretty shitty, pretty cheesy styles. It's weird. It's like they have these like group of people who obviously are basically geniuses who work on Photoshop, and then they have like stuff like this where like I go here, let me see if I make a layer, and then you click on it and you get like these really cheesy 70s type of styles.
Nice. Like kente cloth, right?
Might be like taffy or something, right?
Yeah.
All right, and then remember if you dock different panels like I have here, this is the icon for history. So that's a quick way to also go back to a previous state.
Now, are you using Photoshop standalone or Photoshop CC?
So I'm on Photoshop CC, and
Okay.
if
Mine looks different.
in what way?
I don't know, it's kind of like slicker looking, more
dark?
modern. Yeah.
Okay, so what that is you go up to Photoshop and then go down to Preferences and go to the right and go to Interface. If you look at my screen, you'll see that I have the third from left or the second from. When you're here, if you look at the bottom of your tool panel on the right, at least I have mine on the right, because if you're right-handed, I think it's, for years I had my toolbar on the left.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was at a seminar and I saw that Lee Varus, who's a great presenter, have it on the right. I'm like, wow, why didn't I think of that? I mean, if you're right-handed and going to like right panels, you might as well move the tool panel as well. So if you look at the bottom, you see this double icon of screens.
Mm-hmm.
So you can manually go there. But if you look on the far right, you see F. So that's just a keyboard shortcut.
Okay.
So when I work, I don't like to have like distractions. So I might have a bunch of things open, but when I work, I hit F and then it hides the other documents, so you just have that kind of medium gray background. And like I said, if you hit it again, you get the black preview, and once more you're back to the floating window.
Okay, got
I'm
it.
not sure if you know this, because you like a lot of tips and tricks, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if you know this, but when you have any open document, if you quickly want to know where the hell it is, you just right click or command click on the name, and it shows you the root. So
Right.
it's on my desktop, whatever. So if it was on an external G drive, it might show you the whole root of where it is.
Two finger tap should do that too, right? Yeah. No, wait.
Maybe I'm on a Wacom tablet, so I use like a pen
okay.
and a Wacom, so. But yeah, right clicking or command click, same type of thing. Now, in general, my geek moment is, I always tell people this, and it's true, even though it sounds very geeky, is I always say, make right clicking your best friend. So what that means is, whatever you're in any tool or any panel, you always have different contextual menu options that appear. So as an example, if I'm at this top Photoshop and Lightroom Group Presents type layer and I right click, immediately it's letting me see that I can go to layer 0 from there. I can jump around. If I go to, say, a brush, and then I go to layer 0 where I can paint on, and I right click, immediately it goes to the brushes panel. It gives me an option of changing the size, the hardness, the brush type, and even the kind of rotated angle on the top left. So it's pretty cool. So depending on whatever tool you're in, so if I go to like the retouching tool, I guess it still treats it as you want to isolate the brush, so you still get the same icon. And then another thing to be aware of is whenever you're in a layer in a specific tool, always look up to your options bar on the top, because there's always different options specific to whatever tool you're using. So as an example of, I know we're getting off type design right now, but I thought this would be helpful. Say you're in the brush tool, you'll notice that there's specific options for the brush. And a good example of why you want to look up is if you look right here, you see opacity is set to 16. And say you wanted to brush something at 100% opacity, you need to quickly look up to realize, oh, that's wrong, and then move it over. So then when I go to layer 0, and I switch to white as my foreground when I paint, it's solid. Follow?
Going disappeared for a second, so I was just wondering
so that again,
what was going on.
Your Google Plus is getting funky. Okay, so I'm back there. So let me go back to Photoshop. I say that again because it got a little weird on Google Plus.
Maybe.
Do you have anything else open that might take your bandwidth away or anything?
While you were describing that, I wasn't seeing what you were doing. I mean, I'm of free RAM at my disposal right now, so
you have plenty.
Should be okay.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, you sound good now. I don't know what it was, but you were going through what sounded like a psychedelic tunnel.
Oh, it might have been just the microphone on my shirt or something.
Oh, okay, cool. All right, so let me show you that again. So what I was saying was, even though, mainly we're supposed to be focusing on image and type, I'll just show you other little tips and tricks. And one of them is if I'm in layer 0 and I choose, say, the brush tool, I was saying that you should always look up to the options bar, because the options change for whatever tool you choose.
Right.
So if it's down at 17% opacity and I want it to be 100 and I start painting, then I'm, wasting my time or, whatever. It's foolish. So with the options bar, you can just click on the right tab, move it all the way to the right. Or, I'm not sure if you knew this, but whenever you hover over anything that has a number quality to the right, so such as opacity, when I put my cursor over the word opacity, it becomes a scrubby slider hand.
Right.
And I can just click and then pull quickly to the right to change that opacity.
Yeah, so for me, I think that would be a 3-finger drag left and right.
Probably, yeah.
Okay, cool.
See, so then when I paint, it's solid, 100%.
Right.
Okay, cool. So this is, do you have this? Did you create that too, or no?
I have, yeah. Well, I have I have that blue PSD and
Okay.
the white
Poster.
poster, right?
Okay, so just remember that's just Command N, and then you can put in your own dimensions here, or there are, just remember if you are doing something that you might do again and again. So if it's 16 by 20, you know that you're going to be doing posters like this all the time. I wouldn't give it a title, or if anything, just call it poster.
I already did that, yeah.
And then just hit save preset. You got that
Yeah.
part, right?
Yeah, got it.
And so here where it says preset name, you might want it says 16 inches by, you might want to then say poster, something descriptive, because when you get busy or you want to do a bunch of them, you want to see something that kind of triggers what you want to focus on.
Now, since I've already created the preset, can I go back and change the
Right, so if we go back and you go to 16 by 20 poster, I think what you would have to do though is say it was 17 by 20, you would have to create a save preset, and then
go back in and change the width?
well, you would have to say 17 by 20 and then say save preset and then save it again. But I'm not seeing where you would go to manage presets. So you got me on that one.
There's got to be a simple way to just change the name of the preset, right?
Well, normally it's like, here's the preset, right?
Right.
So the only options you can see on the right is cancel, save preset, or OK, which if I hit OK, it just creates a new 16 by 20 poster.
Right.
There, as you can see, you would imagine that, okay, so if you go to custom, you can then change it, but that's just saying, let's go back to the general space. Right. There's no area that is letting you kind of like manage preset.
Maybe it's in the Finder you can do it. All right. Well, I mean, whatever. It doesn't
no,
really
it's
matter.
Good though, because this is what I enjoy about, like, helping people out is I'm a tutor. So if I tutor you and you come up with something that I haven't had to focus on, then it makes me aware that, okay, maybe I should figure this out. So in case some client asks me this in the future.
so in case someone that's paying you has
exactly. So that's the good thing about doing these type of things, is it helps me hone my skills. But the thing is, I don't know, off the top of my head. I guess I could do a simple search, but I don't know where you can like manage presets as such. Yeah, that's scripts, and it would be under preference because that's all just general. All right, well, remind me of that later, and I'll look it up or something. But as far as I can tell,
well, the preset probably is in the Finder somewhere, right?
Right.
Would
so
there be like a folder in the Finder, and they could just change the name of it there?
Well, it would be in a yeah. But for sure you'd have to quit Photoshop and relaunch it again. But it would be in a subfolder. It would be in your subfolder in Photoshop. I've noticed that. Are you on El Capitan?
Okay. Not yet, no.
I guess I've noticed that the search thing, I forgot what you call it, but the
Spotlight.
Spotlight, yeah, that's it. Spotlight is not as good as it used to be. Like, I used to be able to type in programs and launch it from there and find things from there. And there's times when I type something in that's pretty obvious, and it'll like take me to a document as opposed to like the app or something. I'm like, what the fuck? I don't want that. I want,
And it's all been cataloged, right? Yeah, it looks like it.
Okay, so here's my applications. Do you see that? I'm sharing my screen, right? So you should see that too, right?
Yep.
Okay, so if I go to Photoshop CC, it should be under. Sometimes under styles. Presets. I don't know if it'd be presets. That would be kind of weird. Volumes. I'm just curious what that is. Oh, okay. Locales. We're kind of getting off, so let's go back and get back to the thing. I'll just do a search for it later and figure it out. But I would imagine it should be in some subfolder.
Yeah, don't worry about it for now.
Yep. You hear me fine? Because your voice got psychedelic again, that kind of.
Hello, hello?
Yeah, it's better now. Can you hear me?
Lost.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you got kind of zippy.
Mine got weird too? Yeah. Maybe I should just close Lightroom.
Just for a second, I heard
like that?
some weird digital noise, and then you went back to normal.
You like that?
Mother.
We were walking on 3rd Street, and there's this frame shop.
Yeah.
And they had the wackiest,
reminds me of my childhood.
They had Timmy, put that elephant dung down that elephant dung. But they had these pretty wacky insets for the frames, and I was like, I'm going to post this one later and ask, how many people would send this to their mom. Mother is starting to look like that.
Mama Llama.
That's right. Angry Mama Llama. Okay, so let me just close that. Maybe that'll free up a little. But I've got 32 gigs on my Mac, so I don't know why it would be weird, but might as well just close it.
You got 32 gigs RAM?
Yeah.
Wow, you're a beast.
Yeah, because what happened was in the past I had gotten some multi-layered retouching jobs, and then every time I was like, sure, I can do these, and then I would take these jobs, and then I would find myself watching that spinning beach ball, and then I realized and everyone told me that memory is so cheap. Why don't you just max it out? So I this was when Mac Mall had it, or was it B&H? No, it was B&H. I got it through B&H, but Mac Mall also has a pretty good deal on memory. So B&H, I bought the iMac through B&H. They put the memory in, and it was literally 1/3 the price of memory that if I were to pay from Apple. So Apple would have been 3 times higher.
Right. If you were to buy that machine new with the
yeah,
I got the I put that 500 gig SSD in.
Nice.
And it's working like a fucking awesome.
I bet.
And that was less than it was like $160.
You see, I mean, everything is going down so much that it's great,
Yeah.
So I always find it funny when people are.
I'm working on a 2011 MacBook.
Oh, wow! So it works well with that too.
Oh, it's perfect. Yeah.
See, I thought that group would be helpful for you too. That OSX iOS group. Just
totally.
You're probably learning though. I think they have one guy. I think his name is Corey. He's really helpful. And then
Jory.
Sorry, I'm getting old here. But Jory is really helpful. But then some of the other ones can be jerks a little bit.
Yeah, he was really cool.
He's always very helpful. So back to a little poster here.
I'm used to jerks on the internet.
I know, right? I remember years ago I had commented on someone's post on Craigslist, and it was a political post, and I agreed with the guy, and I said something like, yeah, totally, or whatever, absolutely, this is so true, or just some simple agreement. And the guy said something like, fuck you, I didn't ask for your opinion. And then I think he sent me an email. I can't remember how we had the discourse, because it was before Facebook and that thing. And the guy said, fuck you, I didn't ask for your opinion. And I said, whoa, it's not like I was trashing you. I was basically agreeing with your premise. And then he ended up doing a search on me. And this is really haunting, because nowadays it's sure, Facebook, everyone can find information, whatever, and Google search, spying on you. So it's no big deal. But this was before Facebook. And this guy responded back and typed in my apartment address and my phone number.
That is really fucking creepy.
Yeah, and he said, something like, you know, shut the fuck up. No more responses to me. I know where you live. I know your phone number. So you better watch your back. And I'm like, whoa. So
Jesus. Should have called the cyber police on them.
yeah, well, I learned living in San Francisco, nothing gets done, you know. So I love that city, but like the cops are like the worst, you know. Because I did once let them know about like a bullshit Wells Fargo email I got, and luckily it was, you know, you get FTC or FDIC approved or whatever, so you get money back from the bank. But they had taken like $2,000 from me with like, because I had just moved to San Francisco, and they made it sound like it was like an introductory email, like "Welcome to the city." So I thought it was real, you know. Whatever. Let's get back to Photoshop here. Yeah. All right. So here we got the poster. Here we got the new one, right?
Right.
So like I said, it's simple as going over to here, and I click on one and I shift click the other one. So they're both selected and highlighted in the layers panel. If I shift drag, then they should be, for most part, center aligned. If my original wasn't center aligned, and I just make sure I'm in the new poster one, I do a Command A to select everything. And then if I'm in the move tool, then when I hit in the options bar, the center align icon, then it will center align that type. Okay.
Okay.
And
now you selected two things. What are the two things?
Which two things?
That you just dragged in there. You
Okay.
shift clicked on these two items, but what?
Right. Okay.
I'm not sure why it's two and not one item.
Right, because it's two different layers.
Okay.
Because they're different size and.
Okay. So okay, I get it. Each line of text is a different layer.
Right, because what I do is, if it's a block of text, then, you know, I can have a bunch of different text for it. But if it's two, kind of like a title and a subhead,
right,
then it has different formatting, and so I might want to like. Okay, so now I'm just kind of showing you how to kind of format text. So let me explain what I would do with these two separate layers. So the first thing is, when you have the layers, obviously the eye turns it on and off. If you click on the T icon, it highlights it, right? So that means that you can go up to the options bar, and I can change the font if I want. Mm-hmm. And I could say, you know what, I don't want regular, or I want like italic, or I want bold, right?
Right.
And then while I'm there, I can also decide how does it preview if I do a quick JPEG and then put it up somewhere. Does the text look weird? Because sometimes the text can be a little too sharp. So sometimes you want to go from sharp to strong. And that just kind of gives it a little bit more pronounced effect. You can't really see so much when it's highlighted like this, but the reason why I keep it highlighted, because I then go over to this box here and I can change the color. So then that's why I can do that. And then when I hit the move tool, you can see that preview. And then I'll look at this and I'll say, you know what, that's too dark. Double click the T, go back, and I can make it like a lighter red or something. And then when I hit the OK, it takes. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So in this case, I've done ones where I've made it more like this, like more like yellow or something. And then usually I do have images behind, because this is the text that I use for like the events and the webinars.
Right.
So usually it is just like white or just yellow. And so that's one thing to think about too, is readability. You know, so if you have this on white, it's a big difference between this on blue. And if it's too dark, in general, type that's too dark besides black is not, it doesn't read well. So just be aware of that when you create flyers and stuff. Right. So let me just show you how I would go ahead, and then you can ask questions, but let me show you how I would go ahead and create like a poster. Okay? Mm-hmm. So let me go back. Command Option Z, Command Option Z, Command Option Z, and it goes back. Okay, so I do a Command O for open. I go to my little navigator. And then in this case, I'm going to just go to like a photo I took recently. So I've been doing these like mannequin photos, right? Mm-hmm. So I like to kind of surreal quality. They're like somewhat real. They got a weird kind of seductive, trying to be real, seductive quality, but they're not in the strangeness. So I love taking mannequin photos. Obviously, you're not going to create club flyers with mannequins, but this is just to show you like the process. That's right.
Actually, I create the club flyers with Barbie dolls.
Barbie dolls. There we go.
So it's actually a very similar thing to what you've got here right now, because I do like extreme close-ups of like
Barbie.
a $6 million man doll head. That was one of my flyers from earlier.
Did you really though, or you just shit?
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, I'm gonna make some kind of for the new one that I have coming up. I'm gonna do some kind of tableau.
That's cool. Yeah, it's fun to play with different things. Yeah,
dolls. It's fun to play with dolls.
It's fun to play with dolls. Life-size dolls. All right, so here we have this image. Now, the thing to be aware of is obviously resolution. So if I go to image size, this one is set to 72. So when I drag it over, it's not going to be the size of the poster. It'll be shrunken down.
Mm-hmm.
But if it was 300, it might even be too large, and I'd have to resize it. So let me just show you that. So what I do is, there's two ways of doing it. You might already know this, I don't know, but if you're in the Move tool, you can click on any document, and as you drag, it'll drag it into the other one.
Right.
And see what I said? It's pretty small because it's 72, right? Now, if I go here, a lot of times what I like to do is I like to go to the Layers panel, and I click on the background layer because it's flattened, and I hold Shift and drag, and then it's also, by holding Shift, it's centered. Now, what I would suggest is that you do have 300, PPI resolution images that you're dragging into if you can.
Uh-huh.
If it's 72, you can get away with a little bit of resizing, but let me show you the trick to that. So I turn off the type. I don't really care about that yet. I'm going to put it underneath the type anyways, because that's going to go, the type will go above. So you know about layers, that you just click and drag, and then you can reorder them.
I know now.
You know now, good. See, that's what we're here for.
Uh-huh.
All right, so I have this. So the trick is you right click, or whatever, 2-finger dash or whatever, and you say convert to smart object. You'll then notice that there is that icon on the bottom right. So it's no longer like a pixelated layer. It's now a smart object. So that means if I go over and I hit F so I can just see this, if you go to edit transform or free transform, which is Command T, you then get this bounding box with the little tabs. And then if you hold Option and Shift and drag any corner, you can resize. So if you go to a certain percentage like this and I hit return, you'll see that the image looks pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I do Command T again, I do an Option Shift, and I take it like, the size of the poster or something. It still doesn't look too bad, right?
Right.
And then I'll do it again just so it takes up that white space. But then when I do a Command plus and zoom in, that's still holding pretty well, because this is
not bad.
Let's see what percentage this is now. All right, so if I go to what they would consider 100%, then you'll see it gets a little mushy.
Mm-hmm.
But for most part, the printing will be like that quality. So it's still pretty good. All right, so that's, and then what I do is if I'm not going to use the image again, I just close it. I like to kind of work clean. I don't like a lot of bullshit kind of in my Photoshop canvas.
Now, what is making it a sharp, a smart object do?
Okay, so what happens by right-clicking and say converting to smart object, it means that it's kind of hard to describe. You might have to do a search on it, but the basics of it is that when you convert something to a smart object, it's no longer pixelated, and it somehow holds the original information, and it handles resizing better.
Oh, okay.
So
So it allows you to manipulate it at full resolution, kind of thing.
That's right. So if I go here and I open up the original JPEG, right? So I'll turn off the smart object back here. I take this one and I drag over the original pixelated layer, right? Close that. Do full screen view. Now I go directly to Command T for transform, and I have not converted it to a smart object. And I bring it all the way up to the same resizing. It has gotten better though, I have to admit.
It's not bad, yeah.
It is very good, really. Yeah, Photoshop's gotten a lot better because I think people complained, and there's probably too many people who couldn't get the gist of a smart objects concept. So I think Photoshop put some good energy with their team on making it so it's pretty good. So this at 50, that's at 100.
It's not too much different than the
Not at
smart
all.
object.
Yeah, so I guess it's just I'm a creature of habit, and it's something I've been doing for a while, but it looks like you don't have to really worry about that too much. But just be aware that if the original, let me go back to that so you get the idea.
But it's a good habit to get into is transforming into a smart object.
Yeah, I think so, because a lot of times it just preserves the original content and the quality of the images there, whereas resizing can blur it a little bit or pixelate it. Now, another factor is this, though. Even though
color cast a little different on these two?
Let's see if this
or am I imagining it?
No, let me see. Image mode. Edit.
It might just
Okay,
be
yeah.
I'm imagining it.
No, that's good. So what it is the one on the right has an sRGB color profile, and the poster on the left I kept as an Adobe RGB 1998 color profile. So that's why it might be slightly different color.
Okay. So the one on the left is more accurate.
Yeah, the one on the left would be more vibrant and probably more accurate, especially as long as your printer can print Adobe RGB. Now, just for the sake of learning, the original image here, if I go to image size, is pretty big already, though, even though it's only 72 ppi. It's 10.6 by 16, right? So when you drag that over, even though it's small, do remember that the amount of information by the fact that it was 16 inches vertically can probably handle this better, right? So for the sake of experimenting, I go here and I say image duplicate, and I close the original, and I go to image size and say I made this 7:4 type of thing, right? So if the original is 7:4, it's 72, and then I bring it over. Let me turn these off. And then I do a Command T, and I resize up. See, already you can see the pixelization. See how, watch this. So if you look at the eyes especially, you can see that a small image when brought over and then resized or transformed gets pretty blurry, pixelated, mushy.
Yeah.
Whereas look at the other ones. And the other one was still 72 pixels per inch, but the original dimensions had more pixels in it. It was 16 inches by 10. So do be aware that you got to be realistic. You can't grab a tiny image that's 4:5 at 72 and then drag it over and think you're going to transform it and get sharp quality.
Right.
So, but if you're taking the photos and you're going to be using your own work, for sure you're going to be shooting in RAW, right?
Yeah.
And when you shoot in RAW, you then export out from Lightroom or Adobe Camera Raw as 300 pixels per inch TIFF. So you'll always be having good quality images to work from. And what's your thoughts on that? I'm just curious. You liking Lightroom a lot these days, or you use Adobe Camera Raw, or you more?
I don't use. I've never used Adobe Camera Raw. I've used. I've been using Lightroom for I guess a little over a year when I decided to go legit cloud, and
Right.
fucking God, Lightroom is just it's just amazing.
I love it, right?
It's incredible.
Now, you didn't do the update, though, did you?
What's that?
You didn't do the recent update, did you?
The recent I don't. There were a lot of people complaining about imports.
Yeah, the new import dialog is removed a couple of important features, as well as it has caused crashing on Macs.
No, I thought they addressed the issue.
So yeah, Tom Hoggerty from the Lightroom team did a public apology, and what's happening is there's like, first it was like 6.1 came out, like as an example of, I'm not sure the exact number of the update, but it was like 6.1 came out, and then it created chaos. Then they came out with 6.2, which patched some of those problems, but 6.3 is the update we're waiting for, that will have a reverting back to the old import, but yet have more stability and subtle changes to be a true new update. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, let me see what. Hold on a second. No.
80 times. There's a post here by a friend that says drinking beer slows down Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease. Yeah, that sounds scientifically.
Sounds legit. One study conducted by a beer drinking Romanian.
Yeah. ibtimes.com, whatever that is.
I think that's International Business Times.
Yeah.
But yeah,
In Australia,
nobody reports science correctly, so it's always like, yeah, whatever.
International Business Times, Australian edition, by someone named Saranya. So
I trust that.
you know what I do believe is good though is coconut oil. So I did some reading about a thing called oil pulling, where you gargle with virgin organic coconut oil. And then I did some more research on it, and they were saying that it's really good for the brain because the brain has like oils in it, and they were saying that the coconut oil somehow helps to lubricate it and helps the function of the brain. So when it does the transmit, that's what they said. So I have to admit, I took a spoonful of it.
I think it works like
I don't know how it works, but
I was smarter.
Right. No, but I did take a spoonful of it, and I have to admit that when I went to go tutor, I seemed to be a little bit sharper. So say I'm tired today, and I go to tutor, and I find like me having certain brain farts or something. I was finding that if I was taking the coconut oil with lunch before I went to tutor, I felt a little bit more focused and sharp. You could say it's bullshit, or you could try it out, but it did seem to work though in subtle ways. So why are you like anti-natural healing stuff, or?
Well, I mean, what you're no, I'm into stuff that works, But what you're driving to me is a classic case of, well, it might be placebo, it might be
Right. Sure.
You expect this to happen, so you feel that it is happening,
Right. Sure.
So it's who can say
Exactly. Yeah.
But in terms of Lightroom, what is the most recent Lightroom?
Okay, so let me see what it says. It should be.
What's the most recent version of Lightroom?
Okay, so
2015.2.1.
Right. So what do you have?
2015.2.1.
That's what you have?
Yeah.
Okay. So here it says, in case you haven't been following the story, here's what has happened over the past week or two. Last week, Adobe released the version you just said, which featured a redesigned import screen. And then I think there might be, like, if you were to do an update, there might be like 2015.2.2
Hmm.
And then there's going to be a 2015.2.3 coming out, I believe. So if the version you have, if you were to go to the import dialog, then you should have like the new import. Can you see my browser now?
Uh,
You should, because I'm sharing like everything, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me just zoom in a little bit. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Here's the main difference. So this is the old import, which showed you the thumbnails and all that. And then the new one that you should have has this kind of generic dumbed down version. And so people are complaining, you know, because a lot of the information is missing and options and whatnot. So
yeah, since that update, I haven't done any imports, so it hasn't affected me yet.
okay, good. But yeah, it also I guess it does affect some Mac computers. So there was some crashing going on too. Yeah. So okay, cool. Okay, so back to this. So bottom line is, if you have to use a 72 pixel per inch resolution image, try to make sure that it has larger dimensions because it'll have more pixels, more information. So when you resize it, it'll have less kind of distortion or lack of quality. Okay?
Okie doke.
So here we are, F. And make sure that at the end of this, you go rush out and get your virgin organic coconut oil.
I'll bathe in it.
Every day. Okay, so then I turn on the text. So why is this one? Okay, there it just seems smaller than I thought. Okay, so here's the text. Here's a general scenario of what you might be doing, right? You have a simple image and you have the text. Now, as I showed you before, if you just double click the T, it highlights it. You go up to the options bar. You can change the font style. You can change the size. And then remember, because there's a number to the right, if you move your cursor over the double T, you get that scrubby slider, so then you can change the size by just clicking and dragging.
Right.
Okay? And then just be aware of these quality style over here. Sometimes sharp makes the type look a little pixelated. So a lot of times I choose strong because it looks a little bit more solid. Why is it distorted now? I'll just keep condensed. Yeah, okay. Let's go back to regular. Okay. And then of course, if you double click it, you click here, that's where you also get the ability to change the color. Okay.
Okay.
Now, another thing is, if you're going to be doing a lot of type stuff, what you can also do is go up to Window, go to Character, and then the Character panel pops up. So then instead of having to reach up to your little options bar whenever you work on type, you can double click in your Layers panel, move your Character panel wherever you feel is best for you, and then quickly go to the same type of selection of options, plus a bigger variety of other options. So you have like scaling for vertical or horizontal. You have like a baseline shift here. If you were to do like paragraph typing, you can change the color just by clicking there. And then there's a different set of kind of specialized type like underline and subscript. And then if you go to the sub menu, there's also like faux bold, italic, all caps, those type of thing. Okay. And then the good thing about this also is you get, now if it looks like, where is it? Well, you also should get in the kind of a sub tab, your paragraph options. It used to have a thing that would say show more options, but I guess they wanted to make sure that everyone didn't miss it. So it's all together now. It doesn't have that. And glyphs is like special kind of characters. So you can even go to like a whole thing for numbers, math symbols. I don't know when you'd need it, but in case you know the name of a band or, you know, there's even a Greek.
Okay, and this is all in character?
Right. It should come up. If it doesn't, then remember everything is under window. So
Right.
if, say, you open up character and glyphs are not there, then you could just go to window and then choose glyphs, you know. Where is it? There it is. But they should come as a grouping like this, which is nice. So there's your character formatting, paragraph formatting, and glyphs for specialized keys and stuff, currency, things like that. So that's a way like you can get like the pound symbol very easily, stuff like that, you know. Okay, so that's how you do that. And then let me just show you a couple little tricks. So say you have like a header and a subhead or something, and you wanted to quickly like add more text. Instead of like grabbing your type tool and clicking and then typing something new and then realizing the size is too small and having to double click and change the font size and whatever, what you can do is the type is treated as a layer. So therefore, if you choose the move tool and you hold down your options key, if you click and drag, you can make a quick copy of any type. So then you can double click and then, you know, retype whatever you want it to be.
Oh, that's cool. What was
Right?
that option?
So it's
Option click
just,
drag?
right, so let me go back. So because it's a layer, any layer can be treated the same way.
Uh-huh.
You just choose the move tool and then holding option, you click and you drag. Make sure you're above it. Yeah, click and drag. Now, cool thing also about CC is you see these little pink things?
Yeah.
So these smart guides make it so as you're moving, it'll help you like align things perfectly. So I can see like now that's like directly lined underneath the other text. So that's pretty cool. And then as you're moving it, it only does it from the beginning though. Like if I do it again, it doesn't have that pink thing so much. Yeah, it's more like when you do it from the first. It'll tell you like the distance between the two, which is pretty amazing, right?
Right.
So if you have to be really, that's more like you have to be really anal retentive for like a web design job where things have to be extremely aligned and placed for slicing and all that. That's what that's mainly for.
Well, if you select both of them, say like option click on two of them and then move one, maybe it comes back.
What comes back?
Option.
There's another way to like say you wanted to select both of these, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you turn off the image and you have in the options bar auto select layer and you click and drag, it'll automatically select both of those lines of text. And then when you option drag, it'll duplicate both.
Can you do the same thing with Command A?
Let's try that. So let me have one selected. Okay, if I do Command A and then I drag, no, it's not seeing it. It just Command A selects the whole perimeter, but it's not specifying that I want both type layers to be selected.
Okay.
So it's just a simple auto select layers on with the move tool in the options bar, and then I click and drag. So what this is, it's not really creating a selection. It's just kind of showing what I want to select in the layers panel.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I hold the option, and then the best thing to do is, even though it does that smart alignment, best thing to do is when you hold option, hold shift when you pull down, and that way it'll keep it constrained to the same placement. Cool?
Yeah.
All right, so once again, you want to change anything, you just double click the T icon, you can change it there. Now, I don't think you're going to need to do this so much, but just for the sake of showing you, since I have auto select layer on, I'll just click on this and I'll go to that layer, right? So I'm in this layer. If you go down to the bottom of your layers panel, there's like a layer styles section where the FX is. If you click on that, that's where you can do things like this, where you can, if you wanted to, you can do like a bevel and emboss. So I can do like an emboss. So it starts giving that kind of 3D type you want it. And if you start upping the size, and you start getting this kind of cheesy, overdone look. But for like subtle, when it's at a very small size, it's just slightly kind of 3D looking, and it's not so bad.
Uh-huh.
But you can just kind of play around with the different styles. There's
That kind of makes it pop a little bit too, right?
it does though. So sometimes I use it sparingly, so it kind of pops from the background.
Mm-hmm.
And there, like I said, there's all different styles. I tend to go towards emboss, and then be aware of that the shading, has a direction. So I've learned that 125 is that drop shadow to the right. So it's slightly down, and then to the right is the 125.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now the cool.
So emboss is as if you're pushing it into the image, and bezel as if it's resting on top of it. Is that what's happening?
Let's do more of a. Yeah, here's outer bevel, and it looks like a kind of raised. See, it's got a little bit of a 3D going back of the lettering. And inner bevel doesn't have that same kind of back material. It just raises it, but doesn't have a like a background to the letter. Does that make sense? It's kind of hard to describe. Emboss, as you can see, does the same thing. Kind of gives a rise to the letters, but doesn't have any depth to it besides the kind of top level. And then there's this under technique, there's chisel hard, chisel soft. So it has a kind of different, I think the higher you go, you can see it more. Yeah.
Right.
Chisel soft. I think smooth is what I tend to default to. Now, when you're working with type and you're in this layer style, and you have that option of bevel and emboss. If you look over on the left, you can see that I can turn it off temporarily to kind of get a preview.
Mm-hmm.
And then while I'm in this layer style panel, I can also decide to do something else. So I can say stroke. And if I go to stroke, it does that little stroke around the text. And there's no rule that you have to stay with black. So I can click on the color, and I can give it like a red stroke. And then just be aware of, I'm surprised it's not stronger, but the size has to be brought up if you want it to be more pronounced. Obviously, if you go too high, then the stroke itself takes over the text.
Mm-hmm.
So if I bring it down, so there's like a little bit of a stroke type of thing. And then if you change the position, it has a different kind of quality of the text. So outside is just on the edge. Inside starts taking into the, and center. It's kind of in between the two. I think I go to outside or center most times. Okay, so that's stroke. You can even do a fill type with a gradient or pattern. So inner shadow, just like it sounds, kind of has a similar quality, but you can change the opacity and give it that look. And then, of course, the blending modes would have a different effect. Multiply, when it comes to shadows, is what you typically want. You go to screen, and it does the opposite, which is lightening of that inner glow. So what people tend to do, like there was Jack Davis had a whole book of like Photoshop Wow, and he had a lot of text tricks and stuff. If you want to do that type of treatment to text, I kind of keep away from it. It's kind of somewhat of an outdated practice. But what people tend to do is a little bevel and emboss, and then they might put like a stroke on the outside and do like an inner glow. So you have multiple colors kind of on your text. And hey, if the band is like a 70s band or whatever, or a certain style of music, it might be appropriate to play with different text style, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
I've kind of been concentrating on Courier.
yeah, right.
I love Courier.
And then see, outer glow can be cool sometimes, where you can kind of get a let's see, spread. Yeah, outer glow will give it that kind of glowing effect behind the text.
Right.
The higher you go, the more it's kind of blobular. So the lower you go, it has that kind of feathered look.
Uh-huh.
And spread, we'll just kind of bring it out. Yeah. So yeah, you decide how much you want to work on these. I myself might do a little bit of bevel and emboss, but I don't really. Yeah.
I think you know, rather than going, you know, diving into the weeds on this kind of stuff,
Yeah.
what's most important to me is like placement and alignment of the text. You know, so.
And I just wanted to show you that, even like I said, you might not use it, but once in a while you might say, oh, there's this, you know, 70s type of band and you want to play with like cheesy type. So you might want to play with the, like, you know, outer shadow and inner stroke or whatever.
Right.
So
No, it's great to know. Like, I'm not
yeah.
saying.
Yeah, just to know that it's there, right?
Right,
So
right.
it's there. This is, no, those are layer adjustment layers. So yeah, the main thing is, you know, when you're working with type, if you do a Command A, it selects everything. So then you can go up to the options bar and do kind of quick alignment. So you can center things or left aligned very quickly that way. Back. Yeah, and just remember, option click to drag, shift click to select more than one layer, so you can move a group of text. Oh, here's something too. This will be helpful. Let me turn some of these off. This over here. Okay, so say I have, let me turn these off real quick. So say I select these two. Turn this back on. Another thing is when you're working with a couple layers of type, you don't want to necessarily go and double click the T and then have to change the font to a specific size. Because they are a layer, they're treated just like any other layer. So that means you can do that Command T transform. And because both of these are selected, I can do both at the same time. So I can resize these larger or smaller just with the transform tool.
Okay.
Cool?
Yeah, yeah. But now, because they're both selected, any justification or alignment that I do is going to move them both parallel at the same time, right?
Well, like say you do this like that, you know, resize it like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go back to, say, urban landscape. You'll see that now it says that it's, you know, say 53 point type as an example, right?
Right.
And then if I go back to the original, it is 45. So it will treat it like a layer, but it will incrementally change the font size, and it will keep like the space between pretty much. I think, yeah, it doesn't affect that. It's pretty much the same space in between. I'm not sure if it would change like a paragraph of type and you resize it like that. I still think it would pretty much keep the same.
Yeah, it's proportional, right?
Yeah, it should stay proportional.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, so that's that. Any questions come up? Things that might be issues while you're working with this?
No, I think we've covered what I need to know in order to do it.
Let me show you a couple little tricks though with the image though. Should I show you that? Could be cool. Okay, so I'm turning off the type. So say I just wanted to focus on the image first. First thing is, maybe I should bring another image though. It'll be better if I do that. So say I have another image that I bring in. I got some, so there's a kind of like a S&M.
This new one looks like she's got a cigarette dangling out of her
Yeah,
mouth.
I kept that.
Or
I
a
was
joint.
like, should I keep that? Or I was like, I kind of liked it. It was like this weird reflection. So invisible cigarette. Okay, so say I bring in another image in, right? And then because the original image had, you know, large dimensions, I can get away with doing the transform without losing too much quality, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you can see them in the layers panel. So one thing that's good to play with is sometimes you can play with the balance between color and a layer or two different images. But once you have one image in and you have the move tool selected, if you hold down shift is it Shift plus? Yeah, Shift plus, you will then start navigating through the blending modes. So watch what happens. In this case, you know, you can get some pretty cool different styles. This is pretty abstract because it's two faces on each other. I might have something like a portrait of someone and then put like a photo of leaves on top and then doing something like this, which will blend it a little bit better. But in general, this is something that's pretty cool to play with. Is practice just kind of going through the blending modes and seeing like what kind
And
of
that's Shift plus.
Yeah, so once you have like a layer on top and you use Shift plus, it'll cycle through the blending modes. And a lot of them are pretty intuitive. So like the top ones, darken, multiply, will have that type of effect, whereas lighten and screen will have this type of effect. And then traditionally, when you're dealing with texture and, you know, like I said, leaves or sand or rocks or something that you want that texture, overlay is really good. In this case, it kind of made it just kind of reddish. I don't know why. But a lot of times overlay is really good to extract some of the information from the top layer, but keep the texture and the tonal contrast so you can use that texture to combine with your image underneath. Okay, so that's playing with layer blending modes. And then if you go, as you can see, so it's like the darkening modes, lighting modes, and this is more like, you know, this overlay brings out the contrasts of things. And then these are more kind of like almost filter effects, which you know, you just got to play around with certain images. Like this is pretty cool, the blue face underneath in the middle. So this area.
Yeah.
So you might like play around an image and get like certain styles just by playing around with simple blending modes. And then if you go to the bottom ones deal with color. So when you go to saturation, it kind of desaturates. Hue will bring out some of the color, and then color will take some of the colors underneath and change the color of it. Luminosity strips the color out, so it's kind of like a desaturated.
Now can you are these adjustable, each one of these?
Adjustable in which way?
In like, say you're on luminosity now, is it like from a 0 to 100% kind of thing, like some kind of adjustment?
You mean opacity or strength of the blend mode? I think you're talking about the strength of the blend mode, maybe.
I guess.
I guess you could treat opacity of strength. So say I have this top layer and I put it over the image, and I wanted to, if I bring back the opacity, then it'll blend, you know, a certain percentage of the image, right? And if I go to fill, it pretty much does the same thing though with a solid image though. But it's only like when you bring opacity down, it also brings down the general opacity of the image, not just the strength of the blending mode. So there is no function to change the strength of the blend mode. It's sort of like, boom, you do the blend mode and then you can change the opacity or the fill of the layer, but there's no direct way to change the strength of the blend mode.
Okay,
now, besides blend modes, here's something that you might end up doing a lot, which is pretty cool. So whenever you see a poster and there's, you know, as an example, like a couple walking on the beach, and then all of a sudden that beach image blends into like the background, which could be like a cityscape or some other image entirely, right? So I'm not sure if you know that, but that's a layer mask. So for layer mask, all it is the top layer. You click on this square with a circle icon. And if you look in the layers panel, you then see that it adds that attached layer mask icon on the right. And so with that, I'll move this out of the way. You choose a brush. And then for brush, just remember that the left bracket makes it smaller, the right bracket makes it larger. And then the strength of the brush is based on the options bar up top. So if I move the opacity down, then it's more subtle. So black will erase and white will bring back. So if it's set to black as my foreground and I'm on the brush at 25% opacity, when I paint, it does a kind of subtle erasing. And then if I decide that's too weak and I move it up to like 86, then it's a much more drastic kind of erase. So the beauty of layer masking is this effect of kind of subtle blending, you know, so you can keep certain areas and blend other areas. So I could keep like the edge of that one image, but blend it so that the two are kind of blending too in certain areas.
Yeah. That's cool. That's going to be useful, I think.
Exactly. And then like you can do like backgrounds, knock out the backgrounds to let some of the other image through.
Now, what was the command for the masking again?
Okay, so let's just go back. So, and then if you wanted to quickly get rid of it, if you click on the mask and then drag to the trash, it'll say, do you want to apply it or delete? And I just say delete and I'm back to that layer. Okay. So when you're in the layer, you go down to the options at the bottom. And do you know much about these options at the bottom? I showed you the layer style effects over here.
Yeah, there was was there character at the bottom? Was that one of them?
No, so character was from the window. And then just
Window,
choose,
okay.
yeah, window and choose character panel. So in the layers panel, let me just quickly go through it. So on the right, trash can icon, obviously you click it, it'll delete the layer. Okay. The next one is, so this is for like if you create a new empty layer and you want to retouch like under the eyes and then be able to change the opacity, or if you're painting color. So say I paint blue, right? And I move the opacity up. So I do blue in these areas. The beauty of it being on its own layer is I can turn it on, turn it off, and then I can go and utilize some of these cool effects, like the layer blending modes. See, so now it looks like she's wearing goggles or something, you know?
Right.
And then if I go up to multiply, then it's like a darkened version. And overlay should be kind of like in between. Yeah, that's pretty cool, right?
Yeah,
So
definitely.
that's just simply creating a new empty layer and then filling or painting with color and then changing a blend mode. So let's get rid of that. Also, you don't have to drag to the trash can with the latest versions of Photoshop. You just click on the layer and hit the delete button. Okay, so the next icon, the folder icon. So say you had, you're doing a multiple layered composition or something, and your layers were starting to get a little out of control. You could select like the 3 layers. And then what I do is I hold Command, Option, Shift, and I click the folder icon. And I could call it like, say, retouched or whatever I'm doing to it. It puts all of them nicely into its own little organizational folder. So for me, when I do retouching, I do this like if I'm doing a lot of retouching on the face and then I'm doing different retouching on the body, I might do like retouched face, retouched body. And then the beauty of that is also, say I had done the whole like retouched face and then the client said, can you then bring down the strength of all that? Because it's all one group, I could go up to the opacity and bring down the opacity of the whole group and therefore the strength of, say, my retouching. Pretty cool.
How is that? So selecting that group and then just bringing the opacity down?
Okay, so selecting shift click to select a group, then holding Command Option Shift and then clicking the folder icon puts it into a new group. And then I can change the opacity for all of them because it's a group. Now, not only is that pretty cool, but say I had a pretty intense photo composite and I had a big group of all these different elements. And then a client said, you know what, I like this, but can you get rid of the bottom right of all of those layers? So instead of saying, oh, that sucks, I got to go and click on each layer and trim it because it's in a group, I can add a layer mask to this group, choose the brush, set the black, and then I can erase all of those layers in one swoop. So it's erasing layer 3, layer 2, layer 1 as a group because it has a layer mask. And then once again, if I didn't want that, I can grab the layer mask, drag it to the trash, and it will still keep the group. All right. So let me just go back to Command Option Z, Command Option Z. We're back to here. So once again, after the folder icon, we have, these are adjustment layers. So what that means that besides being able to go up to, like, say, image adjustments, and then choosing any of these that would affect your image, such as the levels or curves or hue, saturation, or vibrance. If I do any of these, like levels, and I change something, I hit OK, it's directly onto the image. And so if I save it, that's it. There's no going back as such. But if you go down here to the adjustment layers and you go over these different options, and I go, say, levels, same thing, and then this thing pops up. And I don't really like it floating here, so I might move this out so it has a larger expanse to it. And then when I move the levels here, and then I save this, and I come back 2 days later, I can see that it's its own layer. It's an adjustment layer. So I can turn it on or off, or I can say, you know what, let me fix this. It brings it back, and I can pull back to where it was before. And it has a built-in layer mask on the right, as you can see. So then I could do something like this, where I make the image darker, go to the layer mask and say, I want to erase from that quality. So it'll darken everything else but that area. Isn't that cool?
Yeah. And
So
all right, so you're using the brush and
but first it's an adjustment layer. So
right.
at the bottom, I choose an adjustment layer. So let me show you another kind of creative take on that. I could go to adjustment layer, and I could say hue, saturation, colorize. And I do this type of effect, right? And then I say, you know what? I like this, but I want to use the layer mask area to make it more subtle in areas. So I'm in my brush, black is the foreground color. I bring the opacity down, and then I can go in and take subtle kind of amount out of it. So it's just a certain part of the image.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty cool?
Yeah. I think I'm approaching the point where I'm at information saturation.
Okay. It's pretty cool, all right? The layer
Yeah.
mask and all that. Yeah, I just thought I'd help you get kind of up to speed on some things, pumping some stuff out and have fun.
No, this whole thing has been absolutely fantastic. I can't thank you enough for it.
And I know that certain things I kind of, well, maybe hit screen share again.
Now, what if you were here? I would share my chocolate babka with you.
That sounds nice. Okay. Okay, so I should be back to Photoshop.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, so let me take this away. Okay, so say it's a simple design, right? So say this is the flyer, or it has some more text down there or something.
Right.
And I'll resize that. Oh, I don't want that. I wanted the text. You know, and this is like, you know, information about the band or whatever. Okay, there's two things. One is you are in a Photoshop file. Let me go to back to this view. But we haven't even saved it yet. So first thing I do is when I'm working on something, I go up and I do a File, Save As, or Command Option S. And then I could just go to like Desktop. And then in this case, just be aware that if you do Save As, you don't want to just quickly then save. You have to double check the format. So top is title. Then I choose where. So I'm already set to desktop because I clicked on the left. And then format. I don't know why it's spinning beach ball. Okay, so it's things I'm still wanting to do that. So format is where I would say Photoshop. And then what's very important is that you save a version that has this that says check mark to layers. So I'd say, okay, save that. I want the layers.
So when you reopen it, you can further edit it, kind of thing.
Right. So then if I close that, now the thing that gets confusing is if you've done a save as, and then you go to close this thing, it says, do you want to save changes? A lot of times I say don't save because I just saved, you know. So if I do Command O, I go to desktop. There's poster, PSD. So that comes up. So you can see all the layers are there.
Mm-hmm.
So what I tend to do, just for the sake of making sure I don't like resave over something, I will always go up to Image, Duplicate when I'm done. And I might even call it like what it is. So if it's a print, I might call it, you know, the name of the theme of the poster and then print. And then if it's for web, it's name and theme of the poster dash web. And then the bottom thing says duplicate merge layers only, which is a very cryptic, kind of foolish way of just saying flatten the image. I don't know why they kept it so cryptic. And then you hit OK, and then you see that it, in the layers panel it says background. So it's now a flattened, you know, no layer document. So then with this one, also to
And
go.
What type of document is that now? Is that still PSD, or is it?
Right. So technically, it's still a flattened PSD.
Okay.
And then the couple things you want to check. So under image mode, you can see that's RGB, 8 bits. So if someone ever says, hey, you sent me a 16-bit image, you need to make it 8 bits, you go to image mode and then choose 8 bits from 16. Also, if there's a discrepancy on the color mode, there's where you change from RGB to CMYK if they do need to be CMYK. And also under image is where we did the image size. So if you had to change the image size, you do that. If you need to add to your image, you can do image canvas size. And what that does is it keeps like the original, but then we'll add, if it's flattened, it'll just add white around it. So as an example, if I make this 18 by 22, if it's flattened, it'll add white around it.
Okay.
If it's not flattened, I double click the background and make it one layer. And I go up to image, canvas size. And I do the same type of thing. It'll give me this transparent background showing that it's a layer. And I can either resize it or I can add another element. Not to get off topic of saving, but I could also create a new empty layer, fill that with black and put it behind, and then you have like a frame or whatever. I'm just showing you, you know, options. Okay, let's get back to saving. Okay, so here we are, it's regular. So I do a image, duplicate, and I chose that, you know, merged empty layers, and then it creates a flattened version. So with the flattened one, it's still not saved. So then I might double check what color profile it is. So I go edit, convert to profile. It's telling me that it's set to Adobe RGB 1998, which is probably what I want if it's a good printer. But if they tell you it has to be converted to sRGB, then under destination space is where you would choose another option. So if I did want to make it sRGB, I could choose that instead here. As you can see, it has a pretty big spectrum. So it has very, you know, international ones and specialized ones. Okay, but it's usually Adobe RGB 1998 or sRGB is what you're going to want. Then I just go up to File, Save As, and in this case,
and where was that current profile under again?
Okay, so if you want to check the color profile, so remember, it's image is for mode to choose what color mode you're in, as well as like image size or canvas size. But edit is where you go to assign or convert a profile. Okay.
Okay.
So if you go convert profile, you can choose it to like sRGB or whatever.
Okay.
Also, if it, as an example, if it was Pro Photo RGB, this is where you would just choose Adobe RGB. Okay, so that's that. And then just a simple file, save as, Command Option S. And then as you can see the top, it says .psd, so it's still in Photoshop format. So this is where I go and I say I want it to be TIFF. And it says, do you want to embed the color profile? And I said, yes. So when I hit save, this comes up. And so it's just saying, do you want image compression? And I always choose none, because this will just, give it a little certain lossy compression.
Mm-hmm.
And then the byte order, if you know that you're saving this for someone who's on a PC, you can change it to IBM PC for the byte order. But most times, if you just save it, keep it connected to Macintosh, it should be fine. And then you'll see, because I have 32 gigs, it saved it pretty quick. You should be saving pretty fast with your SSD drive. So it shows the percentage on the right as it goes, though. Now, so say I did this, and I then wanted to make a JPEG version of it. I don't really have to check this, but I'm just double checking image mode. Edit, convert to profile. It's defaulting to sRGB, so that's what I want anyways. So I'm now going to convert it to sRGB. What I tend to do is when I convert from Adobe RGB 1998 to sRGB, I then open up my image adjustments, hue, saturation, and I give a little bit of saturation to it to bump the color. So I bump up, after converting to sRGB, I bump my colors a little bit so it doesn't look like it lost something. Okay? Mm-hmm. Now, there's two ways of then saving a JPEG. You can do the old file, save as, and then when you choose JPEG and you hit save, up comes this thing, and then you just have a simple quality preview. And then the lower you go, we'll calculate, recalculate, and show you what the size is. I don't know why it's not showing it, because it's still taking time. So even at 10 quality, because it's a large image. Oh, okay, so that's one thing I didn't do. Sorry, forgive me on that. So I told you about changing the color profile. What we didn't do is, if this is going to go for the web, you want to go to image, image size, and change it from 300, which is for print, to 72. And for resampling, I choose bicubic sharper because it's a reduction. So if I was doing the opposite and making the dimensions larger or adding resolution, then I would choose one of these that says enlargement, preserve details, or bicubic smoother. Are you following?
A little.
Okay. Let me do that again because it's important. If you're taking something that you're going to make sure is going on the web,
right?
Image mode, set to RGB, edit, convert to profile, change it to sRGB, and then under image size, you change it from 300, which is for
72.
print, to 72. And then have the resample set to bicubic sharper. Okay? And when you hit OK, it'll look like this. And then you just do Command plus a couple times to get a better preview of what it'll really look like. It's not going to be that small because the dimensions are larger. Okay, and then you have the last options, you have two ways of saving. You can either do File, Save As, and then when you choose JPEG, you're just going to get this basic JPEG options. So the lower the quality brings down the lower the size, but you don't really get a good preview of it. So what I tend to do is whenever I'm saving for web, I've set up some actions. So in the future, I can give you these if you want. So you'll be able to do all these at a click of a button. But I have one that can go to saving as a JPEG. So the direct way of doing that is, now they changed it. So used to be kind of just floating here as save for web. Now it's file, export, save for web, and they call it legacy because they're trying to make it outdated. But I like it. So when you go to save for web, the thing I like about it is you just go to the top right, you say JPEG, and then you can choose the quality here with like a slider or number or whatever. And then on the bottom left, it tells you the size of your file. So on the bottom right, quality 91, JPEG 729 kilobytes. Right? So the thing I like about this is it gives you a preview, so you can see like the original and then the optimized, which for most part you won't see too much of a difference. Do be aware though, like if you look at the screen, the text looks kind of chunky, right? Do be aware that it's just a preview, so sometimes you have to do a Command plus to zoom in to see the quality of it. See? So it looks fine. But at this view, it kind of looks bitmapped and choppy. So let me just show you what I do though. I'll make it easy. So here I have the TIFF. I go up and I do image, image size, make sure it's 72, which we already did, right? And then what I do is I go to that export, save for web, and then when it comes up, I have a preset. So I say optimize the file size, and it's already set to 150. So if you set it to 150 or 200, that means that if you're sharing this image like on different pages, a lot of times if you copy the link to that page or that blog or whatever, the preview will load fast and it'll show the preview. Sometimes what happens is Facebook or Google Plus has these size restrictions. So if you were to like post something that's 500 kilobytes, then you'll be posting and it won't be showing a preview as you're about to post. And you're like, what's going on here? And it's sort of like they're trying to restrict you to optimizing the file size. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So it depends on the image. If the image is fairly simple like this, I might just say 150K, and then when I hit OK and then hit save,